Right, good evening everyone, sorry I'm slightly late. So good evening to members and guests here in Percival House and remotely, and the public watching on YouTube. Welcome to the final meeting of Scrutiny Panel 4 for 2024-25. The meeting will be scrutinising the Connected Communities change initiatives and agreeing our recommendations from prior meetings. The agenda is on the Ealing Council website. It's a hybrid meeting, but clearly I can see that we very much have quorum physically present. So item 1 is apologies from absence. For absence here, we've got Councillor Taylor has given apologies. I think everyone else is here actually. Great. And item 2, urgent matters, there are none. Item 3, declarations of interest. Does anyone have a declaration to make? No. Item 4, matters to be considered in private, there are none. Item 5, minutes of the meeting held on the 28th of January. Are there any comments on the minutes? Sure. Yes, Councillor Moffat.
Only a correction, which was that I did give my apologies.
Right. Okay, so that can be corrected.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So with that correction, are the minutes agreed? Very good. So now we move on to the main item, which is item 6, Connected Communities Change Initiative. So the report outlines the Connected Communities Initiative, and the document also highlights the Havelock Estate Initiative on page 21, which focuses on local support and multidisciplinary approach. Councillor Sharma and I made a very successful site visit to the Have, as it's known, and I think we were both very impressed with how it joins up different council services and also voluntary sector organisations to provide something that really does improve lives on the estate. It's a really impressive project, and I think it should very much be a useful model to expand further. So I welcome Amanda Ascombe, Strategic Director, Strategy and Change, Rob Comer, Assistant Director, Strategy and Change, and Monica Needs, Interim Assistant Director for Connected Communities. And now we don't have Philomena, do we? Oh yes, we've got Tracy, but we don't have. Oh, Philomena's just coming. Yes, great. Okay, brilliant. Yes, so yeah, Philomena Noel of Asian Community Concern and Tracy Barnett, Delivery Manager, Resident Services. They're attending specifically in relation to the Have and were present on that site visit, as was Monica. So Amanda, can you start us off, please?
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Baum. Good evening, everyone. It's really good to see this paper coming to this panel as it draws together the Council's Connected Communities vision, our approach to transformation, and examples of our Connected Communities initiatives, including the Havelock Estate, which I know some members visited. Rob is going to give an overview of the context and our approach, and then we've got Monica, Tracy, and shortly Philomena and I. We will all just answer your questions about any of the initiatives, either in the Connected Communities Showcase brochure, questions about the Have project, or anything else that you want to know about our approach to our vision and change programme. So I'm going to hand straight over to Rob, if that's all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you, councillors. So I won't take up your time too long for this one, but I'm pleased to see that colleagues are able to go to the Have and experience kind of what's happening in reality on the estate there. We're able to share with you a series of some of our change initiatives that we've been working on for the last 12 months since the Connected Communities vision was first launched. I think the common thread that underpins all of our change initiatives is that as a council, we haven't assumed that we know the answer to what's happening locally on the ground. We've been working closely with residents to really kind of try and deeply understand what life is like for people, trying to understand some of the challenges that people are experiencing, and working very closely with them to start to design new initiatives that we recognise aren't going to be perfect from day one, but we're working very closely with our residents and across the council to start to test some of the assumptions that we have and start to build them into a range of projects that we can really learn and capture some evidence from. One of the key principles of how we're working is that we're starting very small in a localized way to be able to test very clearly some of the assumptions that we're having, capture some evidence, and look at how we then build from that perspective. It's quite a move away from some traditional models that you might see in local government, where we capture a load of evidence through some data insight and create big projects that we try and implement everywhere. I think we recognise that Ealing is a very diverse borough, and what may work in one town may not work in other towns. So the range of change initiatives that you've seen and you have access to, that we can have a conversation today, are all underpinned by some kind of deep co-design with local people in a way that's helping us really kind of fully understand some of the initiatives we're trying to build and learn from. And we'll be happy to take any questions you have this evening.
Great, thanks very much. So I sort of think it would probably be helpful to hear a bit about the Have specifically, because we've got so we've got Firmina now and Tracy as well as Monica, who I think the introduction to that effectively that we had on the site visit, I think would be useful for the wider committee. If we could hear a little bit about that as an example project, please.
Yeah, so the project came out of a piece of work that we were doing on the Havelock estate, just to look at the very complex problems there. There was pools, regeneration, there were lots of antisocial behaviour issues, there was a bit of rough sleeping. And although officers were working on the estate, we heard very much that they weren't very seen, that the council was very faceless, and that the issues weren't really being dealt with. So we came up with the initiative to open an office. There happened to be a space on the estate where the regeneration team used to work. So we decided to open an office and test to see what difference a local team would make. And that team is made up of people from different teams, different places, someone from Safer Communities, some housing staff. Yeah, and just go and listen to the community and hear what the issues are and how we can help them solve it. It was also an opportunity. There's a community shop on the estate that was always there for residents, but it wasn't very well used. So it was an opportunity for us to work more closely with the voluntary sector in bringing some of those services as well. So my colleague Philomena here has been delivering some ESOL classes on the estate because English generally isn't the first language there. So we've been developing some of that, and that's being built upon as we learn what the community really need. So we work with other services as well. So we now have a social prescriber working in the office as well. So working quite closely with the NHS and just trying to provide a holistic wraparound service.
Philomena, would you like to talk about how Asian Community Concern got involved and the services that you're providing to residents on the Have?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm Philomena, and I'm from Asian Community Concern, and we got an opportunity. It was a pilot project where we came to know that the housing from Ealing is coming to Havelock Estate, and the space was shown. We were already running one classes in Open Havelock, which is very nearby, but the response was not that good, and it was only a women classes. But when we were offered this space, which is very open and very central to the community, and for 3 months we've been running the classes, and we got very good response. On the first day, we had 8 participants who joined the class, and total of 26 participants have registered with us. And lots of refugees, asylum seeker and migrants are also coming from the local bed and breakfast hotels nearby to join the classes. One of the student who joined, and he said, this is the first place in the country where I have come to. Right after the Christmas, he came to attend the class, and he said, the first thing I want to do is to learn the language. So yes, it's very, very important for them to know, and if they can communicate outside. So it's a very good response, and we're thankful for the council to giving us that space for providing the facilities around. Apart from that, we also do sewing classes in the community, art and craft, and some activities where it's an exchange program where the refugees, they're coming from different backgrounds. They teach the local residents there about the art and craft work, what they know, and they can learn from them what the other students know. So I try to, because it's a diverse community, I try to bring them in and say, okay, whatever talents you have, we can talk about. And in the beginning, they were very shy, but now they're more open. They know that they're very familiar with the faces, with the teacher, with the evening council next door. So it's been very helpful. And the difference which I've seen with the other classes running here is because the council gives the reference most of the time when they come in. And there's been another colleague, Wilson, who's there, and they speak in the same language. So he says, no, I'm not going to talk to you. Go and go for the English classes, learn there, and then come back. So lots of people have been referred from them too. So it's a very good initiative in the community for all the people, local resident and other. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. So yeah, I'll open it up to questions. Councillor Mataza, I saw first.
Just a quick one. Are these classes free of charge, or is it there is a fees, and who is funding it if there is no fees?
Sorry, we give all the classes free of cost. We have been provided by the space, and we provide them with books and other stationery items from Asian Community Concern and tea, coffee, and extra. We do some activities also, like once a month, just to integrate, like when they come in, some social event or some health and well-being sessions or workshops for them. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Mohan.
Thank you, Chair. Rob mentioned that you're working with residents. That's good to know. So far, what sort of challenges have you come across in working with residents, and how do you plan to address them?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. The challenges are multiple. So with the diverse nature of the borough, each of our towns experience kind of the challenges very differently. My experience of working in some of the spaces, the challenges I've experienced in other local authorities as well. So there is a degree of skepticism sometimes when when the council starts to kind of engage with people. One of the things that I hear quite a lot is the role that the council has traditionally played in extracting information from people, taking it away, then doing something with it. What we're trying to do at the moment is move to a place where people are empowered to do stuff with their own insight and their own data. But the level of trust that's needed to be able to do that effectively means that we need to spend time with people locally to first build that trust before we can do like the good kind of engagement and co-design. But fundamentally, there has been challenges, but overall, it's been a very positive experience. We've seen very good engagement. We've kind of recognised that engagement doesn't start high on day one, but actually by us committing our time generously in local spaces to build those relationships, we see the engagement grow. And I think we're quite pleased to see that in the space like the Have, we've seen numbers who are engaging with council services in the Have double since the time that we've been working there. So whilst there are a few challenges, I think the approach that we're taking that focuses on kind of generosity and spending time with people is proving to have a positive benefit so far.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks. So if we haven't got anyone else at the moment, can I ask a question about, I think certainly on the site visit and what we're hearing today, it was all fantastically positive. It does seem to be a really, really good way in engaging residents with all these services, with the housing, including repair service, community safety, homelessness, which is very relevant because of street homeless on the estate, and the voluntary sector initiative. So it all seems to be fantastically good thing. What are the barriers to rolling that sort of initiative out across other estates? And I think one of the things we heard was the availability of the physical spaces, because there may be opportunities to ideas to sell some of them off. But more broadly, sorry, did you want to come in? Yeah.
Well, just to add to that, really.
What do you want, if it's related to that, do you want to put that yours in as well, and then we'll, yeah.
I just wanted to ask whether there's any kind of future planning for it, because the one thing we get from residents a lot is that it starts working, it's lovely, and then a few years down the line we have to pull the plug because it's no longer viable. So what sort of succession planning have you got in place, or something to kind of make sure that once it's up and running and it's got legs, that you're not going to suddenly say, whoops, we haven't got any more cash to do it anymore?
Okay, so that's how can we make sure it continues on the Have, and how can we roll it out to other places? Yeah.
Thank you, councillors. So I think there's a number of approaches to that, one of which is to consider how we do use some of the community assets that the council has. So where you've got a whole portfolio of commercial assets and community assets, then there's a consideration, I think, for each place and town about which spaces may be available for more community use than they have been previously, or even how we do some of that slightly differently than the way we've done it in the past. So I think the spaces are core, as well as thinking about how we stack up that partnership approach. So it might be that in some towns, it's the community that are leading and the council that are joining in, rather than the council opening the space and the community joining in. So there are a number of blended models. So I think it's trying to think through and explore with partners, because I don't think the council can do this on their own, how we together think about what's best for that community, and then who's best positioned to do what. And I think that creates a much more sustainable model, because you're using the assets potentially to leverage the spaces which the council may well have, and you can work through the process by which you assign those spaces and have open and transparent leases, but also you're creating spaces for those interactions. And then you're thinking through in terms of who should be best positioned. So some communities are going to need more support around rough sleeping. Other communities are going to need more support around diabetes. So it's not one size fits all. Does that make sense? It is how do we respond to the different needs in our communities, and actually the strengths in those communities. So in some communities, we've got some very active voluntary sector organisations already delivering amazing offers to the community. How do we join in with that and support that, rather than replicate or detract from that?
Thanks. You mentioned leases, and that's one of the issues that does come up whenever there's a building, whether it's a community centre or other things like log cabin. I know it's come up with all sorts of different different community organisations that are running a council-owned building. The issue often comes up in terms of having a lease that's long enough for them to be able to get external funding. Is that something that we're looking at? Oh, sorry, Amanda.
That's all right, thank you. I was just going to add to that we are actually, we've been, Monica's being modest, we've been out talking to our community groups about those leases and what a good social value lease looks like, because we are not always, we are understanding through this Connected Communities work that if we do everything from our perspective, it doesn't always work brilliantly. So actually we're saying to our communities, what does the social value lease look like for you? And we're about to put out a sort of call out to our voluntary sector organisations to help us design a better social value leasing arrangement. And part of the feedback we've had on that is the time and the length of the leases. So we're definitely listening and learning from examples that we've got in the past and that we're working on currently, that we do need to do things differently in those where we've got social value leases.
Great, thanks. Councillor Sharma.
Thank you. I've got two questions. You've touched upon some of it, already answered it, but it'd be nice if you could elaborate some of this. How are residents' voices being captured or gathered and acted upon in the regeneration planning? So how are resident voices being captured, acted upon in the regeneration planning? And the other question was, how is the impact of the have being measured in terms of outcomes for the residents? Thank you.
So I think in terms of the regeneration planning, Regen have a team of at least 2 people that I've met on a number of occasions when I've been out in different places that are actually engaging in those communities and making sure that those voices are pulled through in the shaping of that. We can always be better at that. So from that point of view, but I think there is a in terms of the regeneration of sites and specific locations, there is an active plan around community engagement in each of those spaces and places that we're doing. So that's probably one that I can answer. Have might be better with Tracy.
Yeah, so with the have, we are measuring the quantity of stuff, so we know the footfall in the office has gone up. It's doubled since the office opened in November. Also, Philomena's already given testimony to the amount of people that are going to the ESOL classes and how that's growing as well. We are working at the moment on collecting that more qualitative feedback. So we know that people used to go into the office and complain about repairs and all sorts of things. We know now that those complaints have dropped. So that's something that we already are aware of. And yeah, I think the people are being held much more to account because people can go back to the same people all the time. They know who they've spoken to. So we are developing some of that at the moment. Yeah, so that's something that we're working on from a qualitative point of view and just collecting those stories and hearing that feedback. We did hear from a member of the public when you came to visit the other day how she's actually felt that her confidence has grown through the classes that she's been attending, so that's really good. So just stories like that at the moment, but we are developing ways to capture that.
Yeah, and sorry, yes, sorry, Amanda, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to also add on the wider Connect Communities initiatives, we're also doing a piece of work through both our health determinants research collaboration, which we've seen at the Scrutiny panel before, and also the research and insight team, which sits in Rob's area, where we are bringing together all of the qualitative feedback that we've had. So whether that's through local plan discussions, local infrastructure, where we've had feedback on parks, or whether it's Your Voice, Your Town or resident survey, we know we have a lot of that information and it's very well used by individual services, but we don't have a place where we can see all of it and start pulling out the threads and the themes from it. So we're doing that piece of work as well.
I just wanted to know what provision is being made for the most vulnerable during all this, transition and change.
I will let colleagues pitch in as they want to with this one, but I would say most of our Connected Communities work is about the most vulnerable. It's very focused on tackling inequalities, people who feel disconnected at the moment. That's the point of the Connected Communities work. So we really are focusing, and the Have's a brilliant example of that. We haven't chosen to put that in a place where the problems are easy to solve. We've put it right in the heart of where we have some of the most difficult problems for some of the most vulnerable people in our community. So all of this Connected Communities work is really focused on our most vulnerable and our most disconnected parts of community.
No, I think it's worth. So I'll bring you in a second. I think it's also worth saying that some of the work was with homeless people on the estate. So they are sort of very much very vulnerable group. But some of it was not just treating them as a problem, but actually working with them and finding that they could actually use their skills to help as well. Yeah, Tracy.
Yeah, I was going to say also the team working in the office aren't just sitting in an office waiting for people to come in. They're actually going out and knocking on doors and speaking to people. So I think by doing that, they're probably reaching some of the more vulnerable people as well.
Yeah, that's right. That's something I was very glad to hear, that making sure that everyone knows about it by just literally knocking on all the doors, which is I think we as politicians know that's the way you actually talk to people, and the council doesn't necessarily always do that. Yes, I had Councillor Matazra and then Councillor Gordon. Yep.
I don't have a question. I have a suggestion. A small question is that the classes, English classes, are they mostly during the daytime, weekdays, or for some people who are working most of the time during the working week. Are there any evening classes or weekend classes available?
There have been requests for the evening classes, which we are considering, but we don't have the facility to provide them for evening classes. But at present, we are running 2 morning classes, which is Tuesday and Thursday, from 10 to 12. So lots of mothers, they leave their children in the school and they attend the classes for 2 hours. By the time 12, they go back and pick their children and go home. So it's very helpful to them. But there has been a few requests for evening classes, and there are men who wants to join. They're working, but at present we don't have. We haven't done any arrangements, so we're looking for it.
Thank you. And the other comment or stroke suggestion which I have is Tracy has mentioned that the social prescribers are working, and there was a mention of collaboration with the NHS. Being a provider of the NHS services, I find it very challenging when people who don't know how to use the NHS services judicially. And if we could incorporate that in the teaching, somehow lateral approach of telling them when to call the ambulance and when not to call the ambulance, and those kind of initial baby steps or thought-provoking messages incorporated with the teachings of ESOL and stuff, that would be helpful.
Yeah. Apart from English classes, we have done a few health and well-being sessions in Havelock Estate, and 2 major events were done where around 80 to 90 participants were there along with their family. It was a family day we did, and then we also do health and well-being along with Macmillan cancer awareness for prostate cancer, breast cancer, and health and well-being. So we do time to time just to stir up the community and say that we are there as a voluntary organization to support them. And I do do signposting to them. As I said, we work with social prescribing. They're around the corner, and Safe Neighborhood. They're also there to support us with our activities. So they come. They also talk about their work in these sessions. Thank you.
As this Havelock Estate is in my ward, with your next session, whenever you're doing, please do let me know in advance and I'll come and contribute.
Sure.
Maybe
you.
in terms of giving a small lecture or two.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks.
Right, thank you for that offer. Councillor Gordon next.
Thank you, Chair. I think most of what I was going to ask has been covered in the last 2 contributions, but one was about the sort of how obviously people are using the hub, which is great, doing some very good work. But how confident are you? You knock on doors of reaching the wider community and maybe people close to the estate. So I know you did door knocking, but it'd be good if you could talk a little bit more. And the other was touching on the NHS. So obviously it's very council function, council process geared, but what are the involvement of the other partners in the community, NHS, the police? It's great having community service, but I think the police may be important. Is there a relationship? We can talk to that a little bit, please.
Yeah, so just to address the door knocking first, I mean, obviously the officers are going out, so it isn't just a housing officer. Officers are teaming up, so it might be someone from housing going out with a social prescriber, or it might be someone from community safety. So they're actually going out jointly and trying to speak to those people and just explain what the purpose of the office is, what work they're trying to do, just to hear them. And they won't just go once, they will try and build those relationships. So it's all about having those conversations, or they might stop and speak to someone in the street. It could just be that they're passing someone, they see them a lot walking past or something like that. So they will try and start those conversations really. And it's not happening overnight, to be honest with you. It is about building those relationships and keeping at it, and yeah, just trying to bring people in. I think as time goes on, people are getting more confident to speak to the people that are going out. But also, I think because we knew there was a lot of crime in ASB on the estate, people were coming forward more. The Safer Communities team had a good relationship with the police anyway. There was some sort of tasking going on with the local policing team in any case, so they were already working together, but I think being there locally and being able to work more closely with the policing teams as they're there as well has also made a difference.
Yeah, just to add to that, in the partnership space across these connected communities initiatives, we are really trying to open up spaces where we can work differently with partners. NHS is very interested in integrated neighbourhoods model, which is quite thematic. The police have slightly changed their version of local working, but nevertheless want to be involved where they can be. So I think the more spaces we open up and we model confidence in going out in those multidisciplinary teams, the more likely we are for our partners to start joining in with those teams and being part of that community response. So a lot of this is trying and seeing what appeals to partners, what doesn't. Some of our models, we've had less engagement from partners, some much more. We are learning.
And Monica, you wanted to add something?
Just to add to Amanda's point there, just more broadly, I think one of the initiatives in the book that you've had, the Borough Front Line, is very much about trying to not us ourselves just reach into every community, but to bring together our partners with our community and voluntary sector and share information that will help that reach out into every community. And we know that it's not just us that's got that reach, but I think, so there was one very recently, there were 95 different individuals from different organisations, reasonable number from the council, all on opportunities for older people to receive benefits and how we could help them to do better. And all of that information was shared with all of those partners online for an hour, trying to extend the reach as far as we possibly can through existing relationships, as well as doing some of that more door knocking and the outreach ourselves.
Sorry.
It's a bit confused a little bit about the geography of it. Are we is the dream that we have a hub in each town, or are we looking at a hub in each sort of smaller community or in each council estate? Is that the sort of spread that we're looking at? Because some of our wards would be have large estates on them, some of them have none, some of them have smaller estates. So it's like, how is that equality geographic spread going to be sort of played out?
Amanda?
Yeah, thank you. It's a daily wrestle that we talk about. So each of our towns have at least one community space already at the moment. We know that's not enough, and we're trying to set up these initiatives that are sort of place-based to match the need. So we won't necessarily have the equivalent of the have on every housing estate, because some won't need them, but we are looking for multiple opportunities for the community to have space for the things that are important to them, for us to meet with our services across the whole borough. So we've got a good map going on, which we're plotting all the different spaces that are council owned, voluntary sector owned, but where the same sort of support community to community, council to community happens. So definitely we're making sure that there's a geographical spread which is appropriate for each of the different wards.
And because, speaking from just using Greenford as an example, we've struggled with sort of engagement full stop, because it's quite a transient community. Quite young, people are just moving around, they stay here for a bit and then they move on. So historically, we've really struggled to sort of bring in voluntary groups or volunteers full stop. And quite often, a lot of the voluntary stuff that's going on, the activity comes from outside to come into the area. So my concern is, if you're looking for voluntary groups that are based in a particular area and you want them to sort of partner up with you, how would that work in somewhere like Greenford, where we've historically struggled?
So there are a number of answers in Greenford, but we are really hoping that the transfer of the library, Greenford Library, to Young Ealing Foundation, who have a network of over 150 voluntary sector organisations, will bring a lot of those organisations to be based in Greenford. So that's an example of where we have taken a slightly different approach, because we know that there are places that are harder to engage because of that transient population. So we're definitely across each town, it will be different. And we're trying to think really hard, what's going to work here, what's going to draw people in, what are the demographics of the town like, and who will work in those places that will attract different groups.
Yeah, sort of somewhat following on from that. Do you think it would be possible to have a similar kind of model somewhere where it's private housing? So where it wouldn't be, so you'd still have, there'd be a housing element because there's private sector housing officers that check up on landlords and so on, but the kind of, it'd be street services, community safety, trees, all the rest of it, you know, so you'd have, you know, multidisciplinary council services and partners and voluntary services, but not on an estate. Do you think that could work if there was a suitable building?
So I'm seeing some nods from colleagues. I think probably we are driven to where we see the most need at the moment. Once we have a model that works well, there's no reason not to pilot it in lots of spaces, and we are, the residents of the borough are the residents of the borough, no matter what sort of housing they live in. So we will go where that need is.
There are certainly areas with lots of HMOs and so on where it's private, but it's not necessarily, you know, leafy and lovely. So yeah, so potentially it could happen. So I wanted to ask about one of the other initiatives in the paper, the urban hack. So it certainly seems like a really good idea, engaging young people with the democratic process, but I just wondered more about what scale it's been done on and what it's achieved, how it's worked.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the Urban Hack, it started earlier this year when we worked with 70 children initially who are interested in some kind of science and technology kind of career pathway. What we wanted to do was help them understand that there are other career pathways that perhaps aren't advertised through kind of education institutes as widely as they would do, that are linked closer to active and civic participation in their local areas. We had very good engagement in our first round, to the fact that 100% of pupils participated and completed the course. We've now got a second round actually launching tomorrow. So we're working with Villiers School this time around. We've got our initial kind of 3-day training with another group of 30 young people, all studying post-16 education at the moment. We'll be taking them through this 3-day course, starting tomorrow, finishing on Friday. They'll be then kind of working locally within their communities, actively looking at how they can engage local residents and their peers, understand the issues that they're affected by, and start to work collaboratively within their communities to design solutions to some of the problems, really kind of emphasizing the need for kind of local civic participation, but not just participation, but greater levels of social innovation that we know young people often bring to the table when we work closely with them. What we are doing is learning from these two initiatives. We're looking to run a third round as well with another secondary school in Ealing, so we can look to understand how we can sustain the model in a cost-effective way and scale it out to more young people in Ealing, not just within a education setting, but young people who may not be in education that we can engage in different ways. So there's some really positives happening from there. I'd be happy to kind of show people the event that's happening this week if people would like to come along at some point, and we can engage you in the work that the young people are doing.
Yeah, I mean that certainly sounds interesting. I mean, just more broadly, has there been any involvement with councillors with the two so far? And should there be, I guess, is a question.
Yes, so we had at the end of the first course, we had a graduation event when the leader of the council and other councillors were invited to attend the event, to both kind of see the concepts and the designs that young people had come up with, but also to celebrate the efforts that they put into the work. I think as part of the work is looking at supporting with kind of understanding kind of civic involvement. I think the role of councillors is really important, and we're really keen to get more councillors involved in the programme if there are offers of support.
Yeah, I mean, there used to be the local democracy week, which was much less intensive, but that kind of heavily involved councillors. So I think certainly if you ask councillors to get involved, I'm sure a lot of us would. I mean, I think there's the will and desire to try to get persuade young people to be more civic minded and to empower them more to be able to make change in the communities. Councillor Moffat.
Thank you very much, Chair. In the report, it talks about Ealing Council teaching young people. As well as that, is there space for these young people to challenge Ealing Council rather than kind of pushing the same narrative?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, absolutely. And I think what we saw from the first round was they were challenging, not challenging. They were challenging some of the ways that we have traditionally worked in local government and starting to kind of shine a light on some of the different kind of approaches and ways that we would work. So I think the role that we took in the first round was we kind of helped to facilitate the training and the support for young people. But what we saw emerging was solutions that actually we probably weren't thinking about ourselves as a council, and solutions that we are able to then start to think about weaving those into the different ways that we work. So there's definitely a way for that reverse peer mentoring to happen within that space. It wasn't done originally deliberately, but I think there's definitely space for us to kind of lean into that.
So Councillor Mohan, was that? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of social media and press, how this initiative is being advertised?
So the Urban Hack hasn't necessarily been advertised yet. Because we are still in a space where we're still learning and evaluating the impact of this initiative, we've gone directly to schools to try and engage the schools themselves in releasing their young people, their pupils, for a period of time. We are asking a lot of them. We're asking them to attend 3 days worth of training. So what we're having to do is but to work closely with the school to help them understand the benefits that we think it will give the young people from the experience they've told us, and what young people are telling us, that it's what they're learning is really positive, but actually what they're getting from it is an opportunity to add additional information to a UCAS application, or start to put some information on a CV to help them with their career prospects. I think if we can demonstrate great levels of impact through the free kind of tests, I think the role would be to start to look at how we do advertise it more widely. What we have done though is that whilst we're not advertising to gain engagement from young people, what we have been doing is sharing it on some social media to celebrate the successes. And one thing that we found is the young people are a lot more social media savvy than perhaps we have been. And they've been the ones that have really been kind of advocating and promoting both themselves and the programme. So we can see a lot of that kind of success through the social media channels that they've been using.
Thank you. So Amanda wanted to add something, did you? Yeah, and then I'll bring in Councillor Moffat.
The moment may have passed, but I was just going to say I think it's a really helpful recommendation to have local councillors involved, because this is about being active in your local space. It is about CV and future prospects, but it's also about participation where you live now. And I think actually councillors' views on that sort of space would be really helpful.
I had scribbled that down as a potential one. Yeah, great. Thanks very much, though, for picking up. Yeah, Councillor Moffat.
Thank you. I think it sounds fantastic. I want to just make that very clear. In terms of the young people who attend, is that a self-selecting group within a school? Are they kind of chosen by teachers at the school? Because obviously often these things become self-selecting, the same people that you would end up hearing from anyway, because they would choose to get involved later on. Maybe you're hearing from them earlier, which is great, but it's about hearing from people who maybe are less heard from or harder to hear as well.
Yes, thank you. So far it's been self-selecting. So the way that we've approached it is that we've gone into schools to do like an engagement session. So we were able to take over assemblies within the school to first kind of, to promote the programme, but also to promote the benefits and rationale for the programme. After that, we were then asked for kind of self-selecting pupils. I can't talk for the Villiers programme, but for the Greenford programme, we had 70 young people apply. Unfortunately, we were only able to take on 30, at which point the school helped us to kind of shortlist young people and pupils who would take part in it. We have started to think about plans to extend beyond schools, and how can we make sure that there is equity in the application process and make sure we're hearing from young people from a range of different demographics. I think one of the things that we've found quite positive at the moment is that because it's been self-selecting, we haven't necessarily seen a kind of a chosen few by the school step forward. We've had young people from a range of different backgrounds and a range of different interests within their education stepping forward and wanting to take part in it.
Thanks. I wanted to ask about Your Voice, Your Town. I mean, obviously we've covered that in detail in the previous meeting, but I just wondered if we could have an update now that the initial rounds of open meetings have taken place. I think in all of the towns now, haven't they? And perhaps particularly in terms of how the thinking is now with respect to some of the less cohesive larger towns, and where we're looking there.
Yes, thank you. So there'll be a more formal kind of governance update going to Cabinet shortly. But I think your question around the less cohesive towns, we have given that some thought, and I think I've probably expressed before that I think we probably need about 11 town teams if we're going to do things in a sensible geographic way, in the way that our communities identify and travel. And I think there's a sense of people perhaps identify with their town, but they also identify with a part of their town or a group. So we're just making sure that there are enough events. We're not restricted to having only 7 events and 1 in each town. We will make sure that they work geographically and how people define their own communities. So definitely thinking that we are kind of redefining some of the borders of Your Voice, Your Town, if you like.
Thanks. So any more questions either on that or on any of the other initiatives in the paper? If not, we'll start thinking about recommendations. Well, I'll open it up for people to suggest. I've written some down, but I'll open it up for people to suggest any recommendations. Yes, Councillor Rosa.
Definitely the one that Amanda suggested with councillor engagement, because if you've been to Greenford, I had no idea that you've already been to Greenford as a Greenford councillor. I would have loved to have got involved, and also as a trustee of Young Ealing Foundation, it would have been quite a brilliant opportunity. So I'm sorry to have missed that.
Yeah, I think absolutely that makes sense as a recommendation, very much so. I mean, do we also want to kind of sort of endorse the approach and recommend that it's rolled out more? And I guess that's happening anyway. But I think that was that is the feeling, isn't it? That makes sense. Yep. So. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, Councillor Moffat. Yep.
Sorry, just on the recommendation that councillors be invited. Knowing how difficult it can be to get younger people to open up in front of people they find comparatively intimidating, be important to, I think, be led by facilitators on where councillor involvement will be beneficial versus counterproductive in terms of hearing from young people.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah, that's fine as a recommendation. Yeah, that's right. No, that's right. I mean, I think, as I say, in the events that used to happen for Local Democracy Week, there was actually what we found was young people were actually very interested in what councillors did, what they were, so that they didn't seem to find as scary. They just found as kind of objects of interest to ask questions to, kind of, you know what I mean? but yeah, but I think that still that wording works, because obviously we need to think about what the most appropriate way to do it. Good. So yeah, so there was a again, it's kind of what you're doing anyway to some extent, but there was a recommendation, I think, potentially around working with voluntary organisations to deal with the lease issue, to try to yeah, to try to change the social leases so that they are more appropriate for voluntary sector organisations, particularly, as I say, the point in terms of being able to get funding. Yeah, that's that. Yep. Again, I mean, I think we were very impressed with the HAV, and I guess there's a recommendation around trying to identify similar sort of schemes to that, different because of different geographies, but that sort of principle being rolled out to more places within the borough, I think would be very positive. So that's rolling out more initiatives similar to the HAV. So that is more initiatives where there are joined up different council services and voluntary organisations operating from a specific building, a specific physical space within a place. As I say, it might be an estate, perhaps in some cases it might not be an estate, but within a place-based approach that has a bunch of different council services plus voluntary organisations all working together. Because that does seem to be a fabulous model. What else have I got here? Yes, sorry, Councillor Sharma.
You mentioned something about having a long-term plan for sustaining this community services. So it's kind of looking at it having a long-term plan, because once the regeneration funding ends, we still need to keep it sustained and keep it moving. So some kind of long-term planning and kind of learning and using that learning to keep it sustained and moving forward and growing.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that the Havelock regeneration isn't happening anyway, but I take your point very much. It's the point that Councillor Raza made. So I think perhaps, yeah, I mean, we could widen that out more generally in terms of the connected communities initiatives more broadly, to make sure that each of them thinks about the legacy, and try if it's we make sure we don't fall into the trap of having short-lived schemes that then stop, that sort of long-term tail. And then yeah, there was the point that Councillor Mortaza made about trying to incorporate ESOL in evenings. Is that worthwhile as an initiative? Again, generally, not just for the Havelock, but
yeah,
more generally for these schemes. Amanda wanted to come back on that. Maybe.
Yeah, I was just musing on that one, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Philomena about whether it is because we're not opening the HAV at night that you can't offer that, or whether it's availability of people to do the teaching. But I think there is a general sort of response to the Connected Communities initiative to remember that council opening hours are not the same as community opening hours, and we should be mindful in all of these pieces of work about working with communities leading.
Okay, well, maybe we can, make it less prescriptive actually, and just say we need to be mindful that, as you exactly said, that people's the hours that people want services aren't necessarily the same as the council's normal opening hours, and we need to take that in mind in general. Yeah, good, great. I think that's all I've got. Did anyone else have any more recommendations at all? I think Councillor Raza.
Was there something around the NHS that you wanted to do?
Yeah, I just wanted to suggest that maybe when we are teaching them, or as I have volunteered, maybe in general, some incorporation, collaboration with the NHS, how to use the NHS, giving people basic fundamental information.
And I suppose the same could be applied to the police as well. So external partners, I guess.
Yeah, I think so.
That's sort of tied in with signposting as well. And in particular, for example, food banks and, where they can get support when needed and so forth. So signposting, something about that.
Yeah, so integrating with and signposting to external organisations, so not voluntary, but external external organisations more generally. Yeah, good, great, brilliant. So if there's no more suggestions for that, then we move on to the item 7, which is the panel recommendations from the first 3. Clearly Amanda needs to stay for this because they're all in your area, but I don't know if everyone needs to stay. Probably. We thank you very much for your attendance, as I say, officers and Philomena. And it's been very, very helpful. You provided us with a lot of very, very useful information and thoughts. Yes, great. Thank you. Oh yeah, sure. Oh yeah, so ignore the first. Yeah, okay. Right, yes. So Cornelia's just pointing out that the first page in the paper as it's circulated is from a different panel, so ignore that. Yeah. Great, yeah, so you ignore that first page of Appendix 1, the rest of it is all the recommendations from the first 3, and as you'll see, they have they have comments in the later fields, so that you can see the comments that have been made on them. Does anyone have any comments on any of those? See, reading happening. So it's in quite small print, actually, isn't it? You can scroll in, yeah. Sorry? Oh, sorry, yeah. Yeah, there we go. That's the one that shouldn't be there, so starting from there, yeah. Clearly, they were all recommendations that were discussed at the previous meetings, although some of them, the wording, we changed some of them slightly. Yes, Amanda.
I was just going to mention right at the bottom of page 36, there's a report on consultant spend on Your Voice, Your Town, which is prepared, but we didn't manage to get it through the process to be at this meeting. But I have talked to Sam Bailey about making sure that we don't leave it to the next municipal year. So he's just thinking of a way of circulating it, I think, outside the panel meeting to the group and then publishing it online. So you'll have that this municipal year.
Yeah, that would be very helpful. Yes, that's great. Yeah. Good. So does anyone have anything they want to ask about them? See, nothing from me because I had them at an earlier stage. But okay, fine, good. Okay, great. Well, if we're all happy with those, then that brings us to the end of the meeting and to the end of the panel for this municipal year. So at OSC, it was minded to continue with the same sort of structure. So there is likely to be a very similar panel to this going forward. Difference being it won't be called panel 4 because they're going to have meaningful names instead of numbers, which should make it easier when putting at the AGMs when putting people forward for them. So oh yeah, sorry, Amanda, yeah.
That's right. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. I just wanted to say thank you to the panel because the recommendations have actually really honed our practice and the conversations have been very helpful in the way that they should be. So just wanted to thank you for that. That list of recommendations has been really useful.
Great. Well, that's very good to hear. Yeah, so I was just going to do thanks you. So yeah, so certainly thank you very much indeed to Amanda and your officers for the the really helpful way in which you've engaged with the process. And yeah, thank you to my vice chair and thank you to Cornelia and other officers that have helped support it and all the members. And so Councillor Mohan wanted to say something.
I think you have done that, Chair, that we want to thank you and the Vice Chair and the officers for the good work you have done.
Thanks very much. Yeah. Thank you.
I echo Councillor Mohan. Thank you very much for all the work you've done in the and the officers' support. Thank you.
Brilliant. Good. Thank you very much indeed. Excellent. Good. Thanks.